here today. We're having a little bit of technical difficulty, so hold on 1 second while I log on to you so I can see y'all. Let's make sure I can log in over here. It's not coming up. Would you mind using maybe the iPad to so I can see what's going on? Or I can do it over here. It's good to see everybody, though. We're having some technical difficulties because we had a cancellation. Don't worry, I have it over. I'll take this. I'll use it over. We had a cancellation. We had a camera guy who canceled, so we had to scramble. It's to July 4th, so there's many people who are out of. So I will go into YouTube so I can see you guys. Hold on 1 second. Okay, there you go. Okay. There you go. Why don't you put it over here for me? All right. Are we live? Are we live?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it's good to see everyone. I can't see you. Not yet. We're still, setting things up. No, would you please set it up? I don't have it up there. Put the live version. So we're still setting things up over here. But I'll tell you, we have a great show today. I missed last week, and I'm so glad to be back. To be back here. I'm always excited when Sunday comes, and I'll tell you why. Because it's my opportunity to educate and to teach, and I thank you for everyone joining. I will be able to see you soon. I'm flying blind over here. I can't see anybody, so I have somebody working on that. In the meantime, happy birthday, America! America is guess how old? Do you know how old your country is? It's 245 years old, right? The Declaration of Independence happened July 4th, 1776. When we declared independence against the British, and despite the fact that we have a long way to go in America when it comes to individual freedoms, we are still one of the freest countries in the world, and we thank we thank our God. And we're grateful to the freedoms that we have, which were, directly related to the Declaration of Independence. So thank God for that. There you go. I can now see. I got some eyes over here. Hi, Tim. Tim Thomas. It's good to see you. Tina, as always. Darlene. Oh, it's my peoples. Yvonne, Cece. Oh, all my people are joining. I love it. I love it. I love to see you. I know you guys miss me. I miss you a lot. It's sad when I can't see my people on Sundays. And I'll tell you what we're going to do, right? We're going to change this show. I'm always evolving. The thing about, being human, I think, is you got to keep changing. And so I'm going to be changing the show, but slightly. And here's how it's going to work. And by the way, I'd love your comments, so you can, don't hesitate to let me know what you think. I'm going to be releasing, finally, my personal website, davidadifeso.com, next Monday, not this coming Monday, but next Monday, the 11th of July. What that means is I don't have to bore you with the news of the day and personal stuff and all the other stuff going on in my life, my businesses. I could just focus on teaching on these shows. So we're going to try to keep these shows, The Wealth Demystified, at 30 minutes or less. So you can come in and out and go spend time with your family. Plus, it's July 4th. I mean, you're taking your time to spend that time with me, and I really appreciate it, very, very much. Some of you left your families to attend the show, so to view the show. So we're going to keep these shows short going forward. I'm going to have a different segment on my own davidadifeso.com on that website, and so we'll give you all the details soon. So you can ask me any question. On here, it's business only, but over there, I'm going to talk about everything personal. As you guys know, I just started dating again. There's nobody in person, but I'm open. I'm available. And so I'll talk to you about how that's going. I'll talk to you about my life, but I'll also talk to you about my businesses. Right? I run a number of businesses. One of those is a wealth management firm, right? Which does we invest money for affluent and wealthy investors. We also do financial planning. We do insurance and so on and so forth. Sometimes we have challenges and sometimes we have ups and downs. I'll share those with you. And also, I also have a technology company that's focused on eliminating this massive disparity of wealth that we have in America. And sometimes we have challenges. You set up a technology company and you're creating software, and there's ups and downs and ups and downs. I mean, sometimes you hire the wrong people. You got to get rid of them. Sometimes you do things that I wish I had a manuscript when I started. A while ago in business, how to run a business. In many cases, I just kind of I fought through. From experience I learned, and I will give you the manuscript to my businesses and how they're successful. And that's on the personal side every week also. So we're going to have 2 shows a week. One is for business, and then one is the manuscript, how I became successful, how I managed to stay successful, and how I balance work and life together. And that's going to be on my personal site, davidadifeso.com, and I'll get you again all the details. So keeping in line with making this show pretty much all about teaching and going straight to the point, today we're going to have a show that I've been thinking about doing for a while, and I think it's a good time now. And the reason why is because I get questions a lot, right? A lot of questions. People sending questions all the time, and I read everything. If I don't respond today or tomorrow, I will respond eventually. For those of you who I've responded to, I respond to my emails, which is daveswealthlessons@gmail.com. But many people ask, the one question I get asked the most is, where should I invest my money now? How should I invest? How should I be investing? How can I make money? How can I not take too much risk? And I talked about that 2 weeks ago, remember? I talked about how you should be investing in a series of different types of investments that I gave you to be investing at this particular point in time where we are, and I gave you the reasons why. But it's equally important to not just know where to invest, but also to know where not to invest. Where should you not put your money? Where's a place that I'm going to give you today? Some places that, look, in my industry, we don't have guarantees. Nothing is guaranteed. Everything, so we don't give guarantees. But if there were any close guarantee that I could give you, there's some securities I'll give you today that are going to lose you money, without giving guarantees. There's some investments I'm going to talk to you about that you should stay away from. Just, this, 1 to 2 years. Some just don't invest in at all. And so I'll share those with you as we go. But keep in mind that as success, I think I work with a lot of successful people. I'm very successful myself. For those of you who don't know me, and I think hopefully most of you do by now, I've been through a lot in my life. Right after college, I was. I had a very tough 4 years, where I did 2 or 3 or 4 different types of jobs. I finally was able to figure things out. But in the process, I was transitional. We don't call it homeless anymore. It was transitional. So I was transitional, didn't have a lot of food, didn't have a lot of, friends or family or anything like that. But I was able to, through the blessings of Christ, get into Harvard Business School. Then I went to Wall Street, where I worked as a Wall Street investment banker. I did billions and billions of deals, big deals. All around the country, all around the world, all over in Europe and Asia, we did some really big deals. And then I left and set up my own wealth management firm 18 years ago. And we had offices all over the country, do a great job. We consolidated, still making money, we do a good job. And then I redirected a lot of my efforts towards a mission to heal the disparity of wealth. So many of you know who I am, right? And I have been successful. I've been blessed by Christ to be successful. And I also think I have certain habits, things that I do. And successful people that I work with also have certain things that they do, right, to become successful. And it's not one thing, right? There's multiple things that they do over a period of time to become successful. And one of those things is knowing the places that'll give you the highest return, risk managed return. Not just high returns, but manage the risk too. Because I can get you an investment that'll make you a lot of money. And as a matter of fact, that's what we're going to talk about next week. We're going to talk about how to double your money quickly. I'm going to give you some strategies next week to double your money and to grow your money really fast. But they carry a lot of risk. So it's not for the faint of heart. Today, I'm telling you about the investments you should not be invested in. So, life in general is those series of steps that you take that help you be successful, and some of those that help you avoid being unsuccessful. Today we'll talk about the latter. So let's see who else. Hi, CC. I see you guys. Henry, welcome, Henry. Wow, we got quite a few people over here. Nice to see you guys. And I guess we're on Instagram too. So hello to our Instagram friends. I always tell you guys on Instagram, for me to actually see you and interact, I can talk to you, I can answer your questions. It's always best when you go to YouTube. And when you're there, don't forget to subscribe, because how do you know what all the good stuff that's coming? You got to subscribe. So now let's jump into the worst investments that you can do now. Now, a little bit of a disclaimer, right? Many of you know that I'm a financial advisor and I give financial advice, but I give financial advice based on I have to have an intimate knowledge of you. I have to understand your situation. I have to know how much you make. I have to know how much you're spending. I have to know what your goals are. And that's more individual, right? So because I'm not in front of you, I can't give you the most intimate advice possible, the right advice for you. So the things I'm going to tell you today are not necessarily for everybody, right? Some of these investments might work for you. It's just in general, from my 30 years of financial services experience, 18 years with my own company, I haven't seen them work a lot. I haven't seen them work well. So I will give you some really good tools over here, but make sure to do your own research. Make sure to consult your financial advisor if you have one. If you have one, if you don't have one, send me an email and ask me a question, and I'll be happy to answer. Or consult your accountant or somebody who knows, who can, give you advice, detailed advice. Share some of these things I'm going to talk about with them. So let's jump in. The things we're going to talk about are not the esoteric investments that you may have heard about, collateralized default obligation, credit default swaps, and all the NFTs, all the fancy stuff you've already heard about. Most people don't have those things. Most people have, basic investments they've been investing in, and, they've been doing it for a while, so they just keep doing it. And they've heard about some others, and, they're thinking about, are they good investments for me to buy? So the things I'm going to talk to you about are some things that you already know about. You've heard about these things. As a matter of fact, I bet that you're probably invested in some of these things, right? Today, I'm going to debunk a lot of the myths that you've heard about some of these investments, and I'm going to tell you the true truth about these things. So here goes. The number one investment, with very limited exceptions, that I try to avoid right now is something you may already have in your portfolio. And if you do, I'm going to tell you how it might work or it might not work. But in general, if you don't have it in your portfolio, do not buy actively managed mutual funds. Let me repeat. Don't buy mutual funds that are actively managed. First of all, let me describe what a mutual fund is and then what an actively managed mutual fund is. Because I bet most of you listening have mutual funds, right? Okay. It doesn't mean you should go sell. No, just hear me out first. A mutual fund is it's a basket of a lot of different types of stocks, right? For example, there's a mutual fund that owns Google, and it owns Apple, and it owns Facebook, and it owns a bunch of other technology companies, and it's called a technology mutual fund. Why? Because if you wanted to buy a stock of Google and Apple and Facebook and all these stocks individually be very expensive. But you can actually buy a collection of all these mutual funds together for $50, $100. You're buying a little sliver of each of them. That's what a mutual fund is. Now, here's what an actively managed mutual fund is, right? That's when a man or a woman, smart man, smart woman, or a team of men and women are actively involved in trying to help you pick the best mutual fund or the best stocks to put in the mutual fund. They're interviewing management. They're running around the country. They're having meetings in China, in India, in Europe. They're visiting factories. They're using drones to watch the car lots to see if there's traffic in a Walmart parking lot, to see if Walmart is a good buy. And they're doing all these research for you. The only problem is they got to pay for these things. It's kind of expensive. So here's this very smart whole team of big women in nice high-rise buildings. We got a bunch of them over here downtown and in downtown New York. And these guys, they make tens of millions of dollars in paychecks for picking the right stocks. And their bosses make hundreds of millions of dollars. And the people who work underneath them make hundreds of thousands of dollars. And everybody's making money in high-rise buildings. And they're helping you pick stocks. There's only one problem. In general, 75% of those active mutual fund money managers underperform an index fund. Really? What's an index fund? We're getting warm. An index fund is the exact same basket of the exact same stocks, Apple, Facebook, Google, the exact same stocks in a basket. There's only one difference. There's no team of smart, big men and women earning hundreds of millions or tens of millions of dollars in big high-rise buildings in downtown LA and Century City and downtown Chicago and downtown. They got big lights and they drive nice cars. They travel first class. There's none of that in index funds. An index fund is a passively managed basket of stocks held in very much the same way an actively managed mutual fund is held. The only difference is ain't nobody managing that passive fund, so it does what the average is. It does what the average does. That average of an index fund, look, I know nobody wants to be average. Everybody wants to be exceptional. In this case, average is good. As a matter of fact, average is great. As a matter of fact, average outperforms. Here's why. That average index fund, it overperforms the actively managed index funds 75% of the time, depending on what space of history you want to use. So let me repeat in the other way. Those active managers who fly around the world in first class and have high-rise buildings and who make a lot of money and spend a lot of money, I know their wives. They have nice jewelry, diamonds. I know a lot of them. Nice diamonds, man, while you're paying the fee. And I'll talk about the fee in a second. So those active managers who run those shops and spend all that money, 75% of the time, they don't do as well as the one that's just sitting there, the passive index fund, and that does nothing. How much do these active managers charge? Investopedia says 0.5 to 1.5%. Average of about close to 1%. That's how much these really, really smart people who almost always underperform, that's about how much they charge you. Almost 1%, right? Okay. How much does the passive index fund charge you? About 0.01 to 0.3%. About 10 times cheaper. Let me give you an example. If you have $100,000 and, for all sex and purposes, you buy an actively managed mutual fund, on average 0.961%, actively managed, smart investment manager. And Or you buy a passive fund that costs you 0.1%. The difference of 0.9% costs you on $100,000, $900 every year in expenses. But that's not all. Remember what I said about the passive fund outperforming the active fund? In general, this fund now beats this guy by 3 or 4% per year. That's an additional $3,000 to $4,000. Let's pick the medium, $3,500 in investment gains plus $900 in expenses you avoid. $4,400 a year. That's what you could be losing by investing in an actively managed fund as opposed to a passive index fund. I like a type of index fund called exchange traded funds. Why? Because as an investment guy, I can buy them during the day, like a stock, unlike a mutual fund, which I got to wait till the end of the day for it to close. I don't even know how much I'm paying for it. It's whatever people say the price is. I don't really like that. Now, I do want to give you a qualification, right? The majority of people invest inside of this thing called 401ks. I've talked about 401ks before. It's set up by your company. The problem is, most of these 401ks, the overwhelming majority of these 401ks have this thing called actively managed mutual funds. I just said I didn't like those things that much. So we, the Pacific Group, are now on a mission because we do a lot of work with our 401ks to educate people, to help them recognize that, we can change from these actively managed, high expense 0.5%, 0.7%, 1.25% to this cheap, passively managed index fund, 0.01%, 0.03%, 0.05%. So if you have an actively managed fund in your 401k, it's okay. Hopefully you're getting a company match, so it makes up for the loss from expenses that you're paying. But hopefully, when you do your own investments yourself, whether it's a Schwab account or TPG account or whatever, TD Ameritrade or Fidelity, you will not buy a mutual fund. You'll buy a passively managed exchange traded fund. All right. Hello there. Wow, I see a lot more people have joined. All right. People are having classes in session. David at Efeso University. I like that, CC. Okay. What's the set? Do I have enough time? Because I got a lot of good things to tell you. Look, I don't know if we're going to make the 30-minute today because I got a lot of good stuff for you. So hang in there with me. Number 2 that you want to stay away from, and I'm sorry because I know a lot of you have this investment. Please bear with me. I don't mean to be in your face like that, but please stay away from this thing we call fixed income securities, what you call bonds. Not over your lifetime, but if possible, during this economic cycle, I would implore you to the best of your ability to stay away from fixed income securities. Let me define what a fixed income security is, or what you call a bond is. A bond, unlike a stock, is a loan you give to a person or an entity, usually a corporation called corporate bonds, a country called treasury bonds, or a municipality, like a state or county called municipal bonds. Those are the 3 most common. Of course, you can give your cousin a loan. She's give you the money back plus interest. That's a bond. That's a loan. Make sure she signs for it. So, but bonds are loans. So let's say you give Apple, for example, $100,000, and Apple says, "Look, I will give you, 3% back every year." And I'm not saying Apple gives 3%. Actually, it's a lot less. But I'm just using this as an example. So take it for what it's worth. So Apple says, "I'll take the bond. I'll give you, I'll take the 100,000. I'll give you a note that says I'll pay you 3% every year for the next 10 years, and then after 10 years, I'll give you $100,000 back." That's a bond. You're supposed to get your principal, and you're supposed to also get your interest every year. And then you get your principal at the term, at the end of the bond. Here's the small problem about bonds today. Whenever interest rates go up, bond fixed income security prices tend to go down. Let me repeat. Whenever interest rates tend to go up, bond prices tend to go down. and vice versa. Whenever interest rates go down, bond prices tend to go up. So, what is the problem? I'll tell you what the problem is, but let me explain that philosophy to you a little bit so you understand the relationship between bonds. And by the way, you want to hear this, so tell your friends. Tell your friends, call your friends and family. I'm going to explain bonds, the essence of bonds, and how you should think about bonds during economic cycles. Okay, so call your friends. I'll tell them David Adefesa is going to talk about some very, very important things right now. So imagine you have a bond from Apple. Let's just say it pays you 2%, right? And then a new bond comes out that Apple issues at, say, 4%. Now, Apple is giving you a 4% bond, higher interest rate. Whew. You have the old 2% bond. Now there's a 4% bond that gives you 4% interest rate. So on my $100,000 investment, I'm only making 2%, right? Dude is making 4%. Which bond do I like? Of course, I like the 4% bond, because it gives me double the interest rate. But I have the 2% bond, not the 4% bond. So I ask you a question. Which one is more valuable? The new 4% bond or the old 2% bond? It's the new 4%. It's the new 4% bond. So what happens to my old 2% bond? The price goes down in value. So when interest rates go up, the price of bonds go down. Let me give you the inverse. Let's say you have a 2% bond now. Hey, App, could you turn the AC, down a little bit? Alex isn't here today. He's traveling for July 4th, but he's always trying to heat me out of here. So I'm always sweating. I'm not sweating today, but I don't want to sweat. So let's say you have a 2% bond today, right? And from Apple. And then Apple decides they're going to issue a bond that's giving only 1% interest, half, which means the interest rate has gone down. I have the 2% bond. Now everybody else is making 1% on their bonds. I'm making 2%. Which one is more valuable, my 2% bond or their new 1% bond? Of course it's my 2% bond. Why? Because I'm making double the interest. So if my old bond is more valuable than the new 1% bond that has half the interest, guess what that means for my old 2% bond? The price goes up because the interest on the new bond has gone down. And ladies and gentlemen, what I just taught you is the basic fundamental of how to think about a bond. When interest rates are going up, bond prices go down. When interest rates are going down, bond prices go up. So let me ask you a question. Where do you think interest rates are going over the next 2 years to 5 years? Yes. One direction, up. You know why? Because they're at zero now. You want to get a mortgage, it's 3.1%. That's the lowest it's been in decades. If you want to buy a house and get a mortgage, if you want to buy a car, the interest rate is cheap. If you want to get a home equity line of credit, if you want to start a business and get a loan, SBA loan, interest is cheap. It's very low because the Federal Reserve, the one that sort of controls the economic activity in our country, is keeping interest rates down. Yes. So they only have one place to go up, and they've already started going up. So let me tell you one exercise you should do. If you have a bond in your portfolio, and I bet you do, because most people do, because we invested advisors like us tell people to buy bonds, it doesn't mean you should sell it right away. But you do me one favor. Go into your portfolio and look at the performance of your bond starting January 1st to today. I bet you lost money, and you're going to keep losing money. I'm sorry. On the other hand, look at the performance of your stocks from January 1st to today. I bet you're making a lot of money. So why are bonds losing so much money? So just what I just told you. Because interest rates are projected to keep going up, so people are selling bonds. Now, what are alternatives to bonds? Well, again, we call bonds fixed income securities, which means you get a set amount of interest. That 2% is what you're going to get for the life of the bond. There's different types of investments, right, that give you their bonds, but they give you a rate of interest that goes up when interest rates go up. Some of them are called floating rate notes. Some of them are called bank notes. When you go to the bank or a company, you get a loan, right, from the bank. It's typically, as a corporate loan, it's not fixed. Usually it's tied to LIBOR or it's tied to prime, some index. So bank notes are good. You can buy those from your broker. Floating rate notes are good. High yield is also good. What we call them junk bonds. Those are bonds that have less credit rating, right? The U.S. Treasury bond, U.S. government has good credit. We'll talk about that in a second. Has good credit, so it's called Treasury bonds. Interest rates are low. And then you have companies like Apple. That's a strong company that, they're not going bankrupt, right? I mean, this is a big company. I mean, hopefully not. So the interest rate is higher that they have to pay you than Treasuries, government bonds, but it's not too high. Then you have junk bonds, companies that are, highly leveraged, which means they have a lot of debt, or they're small, or they're a little shaky. Those bonds, if you do your research, some of those bonds, you can make a lot of money on those bonds going forward versus fixed income securities. So high yield bonds are otherwise called junk bonds, but please make sure to do your research because they're actually a little bit risky too. Actually a lot risky. So make sure to do your homework with these investments. So let's see what else is going on. Wow, there's not a lot of people chatting. So I guess people are listening over here. That's good. Class is in session. We just talked about two investments that you already know of. You probably already have it in your portfolio. I don't mean you should go ahead and sell right away. Do your research. This is, again, my opinion, but it's my opinion based on, from many, many years of experience doing this. So, and by the way, talking about bonds also, let me tell you something. So a lot of people like treasury bonds because the bonds that the U.S. government guarantees, the U.S. government is strong, right? Yes, you'll get your money back because the U.S. government is what you call risk-free, which means there's no risk. That's the way we price it. But there's no risk to default, which means you will get your money back. But there's interest rate risk, which means the U.S. government now, our country has almost $24 trillion, I think it's $23.3 trillion in national debt. It's skyrocketed because of COVID. We've spent trillions, I think we spent about $9 trillion on COVID relief. We had to borrow a lot of that money. So what happens when you keep borrowing money and you keep borrowing money and you keep borrowing money? Your creditors one day they'll look at you and say, you're a high risk, my friend. So I have to raise the interest rate to compensate me for the higher risk that you're taking because you're taking on more debt. There'll come a time when that happens to the United States. So even though our debt now is very cheap because our Federal Reserve is buying the debt, that's a whole different story, right? We'll talk about that some other time. But our interest rate is cheap. As we keep spending more, our interest rates will have to go up. And so, do you remember what I said about what happens when interest rates go up? The bond prices go down. So for those of you who are interested in buying government bonds, keep that in mind. Number 3, so we just talked about two things, mutual funds and bonds that you should kind of stay away from. Let me tell you another thing that I bet you have in your portfolio, but you didn't even know how bad it is to have it in your portfolio. Many of you have heard me talk about this before. Here's the third investment that you do not want to do, especially over the long term, particularly over the long term. Cash and savings accounts. Anything connected to cash. Cash, savings accounts, checking accounts, CDs, money market, all of them, all the same. Why would you put an investment that you want to grow over a long period of time for you into a savings account? Why? Do you know what inflation is? This bottle of water, I bought it for about, I don't know, maybe a $1. But I bet this bottle of water 10 years ago was probably 75 cents or 80 cents. So it went up 20%. And I bet in 10 years, this bottle of water will not be $1 anymore. It'll be like $1.10. Why do the cost of things keep going up? They do. And that's what we call inflation. The cost of goods and services tend to rise every year. Do you remember when we used to go to the movies? $2.30. I went to the movies the other day. It was half of my paycheck or something. I had to spend like half of my paycheck in the movie theater. I mean, I'm just kidding, but I mean, it was $25 to get in, $18 for popcorn, $7.95 for a little Coke, a little Coke. I mean, it's like everything goes up. You need your money to go up at the same rate or higher. If inflation is going up, inflation is the cost of all the things that you're going to be buying tomorrow, next year, 5 years, 10 years, when you retire. Inflation moves those things up. Those things you're going to be buying, the clothes, the shoes, the houses, the cars, the food, the college funds, they go up every year. Your money needs to keep up every year. Do you know what the rate of inflation is now today, month over month? 5%. Your money went up, the things you buy, they went up by 5% over the last 1 year. Do you know how much the average rate of return on a savings account is now? 0.06%. Yep, 0.06%. Inflation is 5%, which means you're making less than 1%. But the things on that $100, you're making less than 1% on your savings account. But the stuff you're going to be buying with that $100 next year is going up 5%. You're going to have to pay 105, but you're going to have less than 101 in 1 year. What are you going to do? You need your money to at least keep up with that 5% rate of return on inflation. Savings accounts, checking accounts, money market accounts, money market mutual fund accounts, all those CDs. CDs are a great investment for a short period of time. The only time you want to use these investments, I told you they were trying to hit me out of here. The only time you want to use these investments is if it's short term. If you need the money in 6 months, maybe a year and a half, but anything more than 2 years, there's options, there's alternatives, there's places you can put your money that don't require you to make 0.06%. And then even sometimes those banks, they charge you overdraft fees. I've had a whole class on that. They charge you account services fees. They charge you for more than 10 withdrawals or 10 deposits. As a matter of fact, you go to somebody else's ATM, they charge you for that. They charge you and they charge you and and then they give you 0.6%, 0.06%. Don't keep your money in cash or savings accounts or checking accounts if that money is for purpose that's long term, over 2 years. Let's see what people are saying over here. Hey, Darlene. Wow, people are really listening, huh? Okay, I love it. Ab, how are we doing on Instagram? Are we good? This is a first because usually it's on my face. So now you have it, okay, this is fun. I'm interested in seeing what y'all think on Instagram. So please send me your comments. Let me know. We're doing a different view. But I would love for you guys on Instagram to go subscribe on YouTube and then engage with me, like like Darlene and Cece, C. Caldwell and Yvonne always do. So we just talked about CDs and how terrible they are. Well, what else should we talk about? Real estate. This is an interesting one, okay? So let me help you understand what I mean by real estate. Real estate could be a great investment. By the way, we're not talking about your home, not your personal residence, right? I mentioned this last week. You do not consider your personal residence to be an investment. An investment is something you expect to yield you a rate of return every year or every so often, and something who one day you can cash out and you can liquidate and do something with. Your home is not like that. Every year doesn't yield you any returns beyond the rate of growth. And even after your rate of growth, you bought the house for 100,000, it's worth 300,000. What are you going to do when you retire? You can't sell the house. What are you going to rent to retire on? Are you going to go to the bank? Bank. I need a mortgage on my home. I need a loan. They're going to say, okay, we'll give you the loan. You're 68 years old. We'll give you a loan, but how are you going to pay it back? You tell them, I don't know. Because how are you going to pay it back? You're retired. And that's where people sometimes do reverse mortgages, which means in many, many cases, you're handing your home to the bank. Not in all cases, but in many cases, you're giving the home to the bank instead of your beneficiaries. So if they can't pay off the reverse mortgage. So it is important to recognize that your home is not what we're talking about. We're talking about directly owning real estate, which means you go to the bank, you identify a property, you put money down, and you're managing the property yourself. Let me help you understand a little bit about how that works and why, as of now, please stay away from real estate. If you can, over the next 1 to maybe 3 years, please stay away from real estate if you can. Last week, 2 weeks ago, it wasn't as, I was on the border of recommending not people buy real estate. But now, and again, keep this in mind that this is my own opinion, but again, it's a very informed opinion. Do your own research. Let me tell you why. First of all, let me tell you what real estate has made over the last, since 1968 versus other investments. Inflation has been about 4.6% since 1968. That's about 53 years? Inflation has been about 4.6%. Inflation, again, remember, is the cost of goods and services going up every year. So you need your money to be able to keep up with inflation. Real estate, since 1968, this is by Investopedia, right? You can check it out. Real estate has gone up 5.4% year over year, total returns. That's only 0.8% more than real estate. More than inflation. 0.8 is less than 1%. Your real rate of return, that's the rate we call the rate of return after inflation, it's less than 1% in real estate. How? Most people use leverage. They take on debt to buy real estate. And when it works out in your favor, you make a lot of money. You multiply your returns. But debt works the opposite way. What happens with debt, it works the opposite. So if the property goes down in value, it's easy to lose all of your equity if you use a lot of debt. So you lose all your equity. Now you own the bank money. Now you don't even have a real estate property and you owe the bank money. So if we take out the leverage effect, that's the effect of borrowing, real estate has yielded, after inflation, less than 1% over the last 52 years. But I'm going somewhere with this, okay? By the way, stocks have yielded about 10% over that same period. So stocks have given you a rate of return of about 5.4% over the rate of inflation, which is multiple times, 5 times more than real estate. And this is when you buy stocks without leverage. You could also buy stocks with leverage, right? You could borrow money and buy stocks on margin. That's not what we're talking about. We stripped out the debt from real estate. We're stripping out the debt from stocks. So this does not count the leverage stocks. So stocks give you a rate of return of over 5%. That's history. But we're not talking about stocks now. We're talking about real estate. Does anybody own a real estate property out there that they rent out? I know some of you do. So, you know what I'm talking about. You own that real estate property, right? Hopefully it's close to you. I know a guy who bought a piece of property in the Central Valley, California, Fresno. He lives in LA. The tenant, after 6 months, 9 months, tenant didn't pay the rent. What's he going to do? You have to go down there. You have to get a lawyer. You have to spend time. Okay, so no problem. The tenant moved out. Another tenant moved in. Before the tenant moved in, the carpet was messed up. He had to fix the carpet. There was a problem with the roof. Had to fix the roof. Had to fix the toilet. Spent a lot of money doing all these little things. And he had to do it by himself. He had to get a plumber. He had to leave his job as a doctor and go to Fresno to manage a piece of property. Okay. He got a property manager who was charging almost 10%, his whole profit margin. Sometimes real estate could be a great investment. The way real estate becomes a great investment sometimes when you own multiple units, so you spread out the risk. So if you own, instead of owning one building, owning one single family unit, you own a condo complex. One person doesn't pay the rent, two people don't pay you're able to manage your risk. But it could be a great investment if you buy in the right place, at the right time, and at the right price. Now, here's where I'm going. Do you remember what I just told you about the rate of growth of real estate over the past 52 years since 1968? 53 years? 5.4%. After inflation, only less than 1% after inflation. Before inflation, 5.4%. Do you know what the rate of growth of real estate was over the last 1 year? Guess. 24%. Real estate prices went up 24% year over year. That's more than 4 times. More than 4 times the normal rate of growth of real estate. What do you think is happening with real estate? Bubble. Hello. Do I hear bubble? I'm calling a bubble on real estate. Now, Carl Icahn, somebody who, one of the amazing guy on Wall Street, he once said something which was very interesting. I'm going to quote him over here. He said, look, the market could be irrational longer than we are liquid. So it doesn't mean I'm going to go dump real estate, right? No, because the market could be crazy for a long time. It happened in 97 through 2000. It happened in 2004 through 2008, right? The market could be crazy for a long time. Real estate could keep going up 25, 35, 25, 35, 25, 35% for the next 2, 3, 4 years and then crash so badly that we have another financial crisis. I ain't calling no financial crisis over here. Please don't quote me on that, but I'm saying it could happen. Let me tell you what else could happen. The number of mortgages that are being given out. Now, this is inside information for in our industry. This is the kind of thing we look at in our industry, which normal people don't. The amount of loans that are going out for mortgages right now to feed that real estate frenzy that's happening, that irrational frenzy that's happening, those dollars, majority of those are not coming from banks. No. The Federal Reserve, the OCC, the FDIC, they monitor banks. They make sure our banks are strong. Our banks are very strong. But the banks are not the ones giving out the loans now. No. More than 50% of the mortgages that are being issued today of the loans are from non-bank lenders. Those are a bunch of companies that come together, they raise cash somehow, and now they're giving out mortgages. Not the banks. They're outside the financial system. We need the regulators to focus on those people because there's a lot of risk when you give somebody money to buy real estate that they either can't afford or that is likely going to drop in value over the next 2.5 years. And they buy it as an investment property, not their own personal residence. What do you think is going to happen when the property drops below what that person owns? He's going to let that property go. Foreclosure. If there's a foreclosure, enough foreclosures on those non-bank lenders, what happens? Those non-bank lenders start to fail. Another financial crisis. That's how financial crisis happens. So, my friends, real estate ain't a good investment right now. I'm calling bubble on real estate, right? On all real estate in America, unless you go buy a piece of land somewhere in Alaska, on the ice and you want to build on it. I don't know about that one, but in America, I haven't seen, what I'm seeing, I don't like with real estate. So if you want to sell real estate property right now, it's a great time. People are getting 4, 5, 6, 7 offers. Sometimes they get 12 offers. There's bids on properties that exceed $100,000, $200,000 the price that you put it up for. If you want to sell real estate, it's a good time to sell. Let me give you a saying that Warren Buffett, one of my heroes, once said. He said, "Be fearful when others are greedy. Be greedy when others are fearful." Everybody wants real estate now. Everybody's buying real estate. Everybody's actively buying real estate. Everybody is greedy for real estate. It's time for you to become fearful. Sell. Again, this is my own opinion. It's an informed opinion, but it's my own opinion, right? It's not the opinion of Suji. It's not the opinion of the Pacific Group. And it's something that if you're interested in exploring, go talk to your financial advisor about it. Okay. Yes. S.R. Lee asked me a question here and said, should I sell? Should you sell real estate? Yes, please. Yes, please, if you can. Now, I don't know what your situation is. I don't know how much loans you have. I don't know how long you bought. I don't know if you're overwater, underwater. I don't know your own circumstance. I don't know if you're going to get taxed on it, and that tax may actually hurt you. I don't know if you plan to do a like exchange to avoid the taxes. I don't know if you're talking about your personal residence. So because I can't give you specific advice, I would ask you to consult your financial advisor. But all things being equal, yes, please. If you have real estate, sell. Not your home. You got to live somewhere. If you have investment real estate, it's a good time to sell. And then wait 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. You might have to wait for a long time, but when it crashes, and it will come down, there is no way that we sustain a 24% rate of growth year over year in real estate when normally it grows at 5.5%, 5.4%. It's going to come back down to normal. As a matter of fact, we've overshot. We're going to undershoot. Here's why, again, real estate is so expensive. During the pandemic, a lot of people didn't want to move. Who wants to move during a pandemic? But a lot of people were graduating. They were creating families. Many people wanted to move from condo life into the suburbs to get the nice, fresh breeze air. They didn't want to live. If you have kids a year and a half in a condo or in a flat, or in an apartment, So people were flush with cash, PPP, EIDL, unemployment benefits, moratorium on bills. You didn't have to pay your student loans. You didn't have to pay your mortgage. You didn't have to pay a lot of your bills. So a lot of people had cash that they wanted to go use to buy properties. So there was a lot of demand, but people weren't moving. Supply was low. Sooner or later, the builders who are out there now going out aggressively building, soon the supply will rise and the demand will fall, and then there will be that imbalance which causes prices to potentially drop significantly. So, yes, please sell if you can. Esther Ali said banks are a ripoff. Well, I wouldn't quite say a ripoff because this is a capitalist society, right? And the capitalist society is built so you make as much as you can. Charge people whatever you can that they'll handle. If they're able to pay it, and they can pay it, charge them. And that's what banks do. They charge you the most they can. Most they can. And it doesn't matter whether you're, struggling or you're hurting, your paycheck you're living paycheck to paycheck. That multi-gazillion dollar bank is going, they're going to charge you that $10 a month on those fees. That's why I recommend go back to one of my episodes. I think it's episode 2 or 3, where I talked about banks and how banks, instead of money center banks, the big banks, with office locations, you only need those people for ATM, by the way. And let me tell you something. There's online banks with no fees, no overdraft fees or low overdraft fees, and you can use any ATM and they'll refund you the fees and they give you higher interest. So there's many online banks that you should be subscribing to. Whereas, all those banks, the big ones with big locations. Remember I talked about active money managers, big offices, expensive suits, big people. These banks, they got to pay the staff. They got to pay the manager. Got to those high-rise towers with all the big names on. Those things cost money. Online banks ain't got that overhead. So they're able to pass more of the benefits to you as opposed to those banks where it goes to, guess who? Shareholders. And I'm not complaining about shareholder gains. I'm an investment guy. I like rate of returns. I'm a shareholder of many, many, many thousands of companies. And we love when they pay us dividends. But sometimes it's at your expense, especially the banks. So, okay, I have more, but I think we're out of time. So I want to try not to go over. But, man, we got Yvonne said, yes, savings accounts are for emergencies, not for long-term. That's exactly correct. Savings accounts they're not for long-term investments. They're not for retirement. They're not for saving for your kid's education plan. They're for emergency funds or short-term needs. 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and so on and so forth. So thank you for that, Yvonne. C said, preach. Yeah, I'm preaching, man. I'm preaching. This is the gospel according to financial wellness, gospel according to riches. The secret to success that is no secret at all. All we have to do is open up our ears and we'll learn a lot. So now I'm going to make a little bit of a segue into next week's topic. And I got to tell you, next week is going to be amazing. You know why? I just told you last week, 2 weeks ago, I told you about investments you should be making now because of the economic climate. I give you a list. If you didn't hear the last show, you got to go back. Today, I told you about the investments that are bad for you now. It doesn't mean they're bad. Real estate is a good investment over a long period of time if you do it right. But right now, with the cost of real estate and the direction of interest rates, I gave you the worst investments you could be making now, in my opinion. Next week, I'm going to give you investments that could double your money like that, quickly. They're not for the faint of heart. They're aggressive. If you're younger and you have excess cash, it's got to be a small part of your portfolio. You want to put it to work and double your investment, I'm going to give them to you. I'm going to give you all the low places you can put money in. They're not for the faint of heart. They're aggressive, sometimes highly leveraged positions. And if you can tolerate the risk, if you have more than you need and this little extra you can play with, it's better than gambling. I don't gamble. I don't go to Vegas. I mean, I go to Vegas, but I don't gamble. It's not my thing. Not anymore. Not for 24 years. But instead of going to Vegas and playing blackjack, these are better investments. At least you don't, you have a longer period of time to either make money or lose money. And some of these investments could make you a lot of money, but they could also lose you a lot of money. The secret is knowing when to get in and when to get out, knowing what to look for when you go in, knowing what to look for when the time is right to get out. I will give you all those tips. I'll give you all those tricks. I'll give you all those little things you should be looking for if you want to double your money really fast. But again, it's not for the faint of heart. You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you. Good to see you, SR Lee. You ready for next week, Yvonne? We're going to have fun next week, always in session. But remember, next week is going to be the shortened version. So I'm going to go straight to the point, not a lot of talking. And then the next day, which is the 11th, you're going to have david@efeso.com. And there I'm going to talk about all the personal stuff. I'm going to talk about my life. I'm going to ask you questions. I'm going to interact. It's an interaction. I'm going to come with no agenda. And I'll answer all your questions, all your good questions. Love you very much. Have a happy July 4th. Thank you so much for spending your July 4th with me. I really appreciate you for viewing. My joy is being able to help you achieve the things you want to achieve. And the greatest joy I have is seeing you rise away from where you are to a different level. And it just makes me really happy. And so your presence is a blessing to me. God bless you and have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful barbecue day. Stay out of trouble. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.